Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and shout out to Facebook Marketplace for today's win. We're gonna get into a pretty cool Facebook Marketplace pickup, but before we get into this, I want to talk about two games that came in. As you guys know, ordered a bunch of games during GameStop's buy two get one promo, and some of the retro games that I ordered were really uncommon. And I think whenever you order some of those games, they take a little bit longer to get to you for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but this is one of those games, and this is High Seas Havoc rather, a very interesting Sega Genesis game. And when I saw this on GameStop's website, I have to admit this was a game that I had never really heard about, and I was shocked. But this is a very interesting action platformer that kind of reminds me in a way of Rocket Knight Adventures. Obviously not the same mechanics, but from a graphical standpoint and just the way the characters are illustrated in the game, it gave me that feel. And so I was like, I want to get this game and I want to try it out because it just looks like a very interesting game. And I was skeptical on whether they were going to actually send it to me, but it finally arrived today. So I can't wait to try this game out and play it. If I'm honest, I was hoping that I would get lucky and get this game complete in box, because this is a game that I've never seen on their website before. It's super uncommon, but it was there when I placed my order. So High Seas Havoc, it's in. The good thing is that the label is in really good shape. The only thing is on the back, obviously you have the GameStop sticker, and then you've got these are stickers that I'm assuming were on the game before it got to GameStop. But video update, this looks like a kind of like either a rental store, an old school 90s like video game rental store, or maybe like a old school 90s or 90s video game store. So if you have a video update in your city, let me know down in the comments, because that's where this game came from. And this was really cool to see. And then next up, just had a copy of Pokemon Blue. Nothing really rare or super interesting about Pokemon Blue other than it's a Pokemon game. And I actually sold off all of my Pokemon games when I sold off my collection last time. But Pokemon Blue was the very first Pokemon game that I had. Got it back in the mid 90s. For those of you who are around back then, and the only way you could play these games were on the Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Pocket, and eventually Game Boy Color. But back then, I remember when Pokemon came out and it really just took the world by storm, this video game. And to me, it's still the OG. I know there's way more expensive versions of Pokemon that have been released, but for me, it will always come back to Pokemon Blue. They said it was the easier version because when Red and Blue came out at the same time, Red was often thought of as the more difficult version to play. Blue seemed a little bit more easier. I've played them both, and in my opinion, they're the same. That's just me, though. I think when you get your Pokemon, you kind of have to train them evenly. And in order to train your Pokemon evenly, you really do have to grind. You got to walk through the grass and keep walking through the grass and keep having battle after battle so that they level up at the same time. Because if you try to do the rare candy cheat, for those of you who know, there was like a code in the game, there was like a cheat where you could get infinite rare candy. And for those of you who don't know what rare candy does, rare candy allows you to instantly level up your Pokemon. And if you wanted to evolve your Pokemon quickly without having to train them, then you would just do the infinite rare candy cheat, give your Pokemon a bunch of rare candy, and then they evolve, right? But the thing about that was that even though you got them to like a 99, level 99, or however high the levels were, if you leveled your Pokemon up using rare candy, they were never going to be as strong as the Pokemon that you trained to a level 99. They were just it was never going to compare to that. And so I always say grind it out. RPGs, which essentially that's what Pokemon is, it's an RPG. They're grind fests. They're meant for you to grind so you can get your skills up and eventually be able to beat the final boss. So glad to have both of these in the collection. Now let's talk about this little Facebook Marketplace deal, which was really sick. So saw that someone had an AGS 101 available for sale on Facebook Marketplace. And when I saw how daggone clean this thing was, I said, you know what? I need to grab that, because not because AGS 101s are like super rare or anything, but for me, and it could just be me, it's really hard to find an original shell, authentic OEM Nintendo Advance SP AGS 101 that is in good shape. A lot of times, if it's the original shell, it is demolished, it's destroyed, the hinges are beat up, and even if it's working, it's just in really bad shape. So this was one that isn't a reshell, has a little bit of wear and tear on the top there that you can see. On the back, there's like this little scuff on the back, but outside of that, this one was actually in really, really good shape. Really, really good shape. I gotta say, as you can see, the screen has some fingerprints there, but you know, the hinges are good. This is just like a really good shape Game Boy Advance SP. So I was really stoked to snag this. It did come with a few games. Turok 2, Turok 3, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Scooby-Doo Unmasked, Open Season, which surprisingly enough is a very good looking action platforming game. It's not that bad. And Episode 3, which I already have a copy of Episode 3, so that one's gonna get sold. But then the extras, right? You always love when you can get some extras. It did come with this pretty nifty Game Boy Advance SP case, which I thought was really cool to see. And then this Game Boy bag, which I honestly can't tell if this bag is meant for the original Game Boy Color, or Game Boy Advance SP. It did come with a couple of chargers. It came with a car charger and a standard charger as well. And so I think overall, this was a pretty cool deal. The seller wanted $160 for it, which I thought was fair. It's not reseller pricing. It's not the best price. Obviously, I'm not gonna come on here and say, yeah, I paid $50 or $20 for a Game Boy Advance SP. I did not, but in my opinion, to get one this clean that's original, to me it was worth it, because usually when you look online, Game Boy Advance SPs, I mean, when they're really clean, a lot of times the ask is somewhere between like 140 and 160 anyway. And so to get basically, because these aren't all the games that came with it, but these are all the games that I'm keeping. I think there was another, I think I had Turok 1 on the Game Boy Advance. That wasn't the other game. So getting 7 games, the value of all the games alone were probably close to $80 to $100. And then you obviously have the Advance SP, which, you know, you could say values at maybe between 130 and 140. And then you've got the cases in the bag, which add some value in there. So, I mean, when you look at the value of everything that came with the bundle, I felt like it was a good deal at 160. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger and went ahead and picked this up. Glad to finally get an AGS 101 back in the collection. And again, the biggest flaw, and I'm trying to zoom in, my phone is spazzing, but the biggest flaw on this console is just that little scuff right there on the serial number. But outside of that, you know, this thing is a beauty. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've been picking up anything else, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. You guys take it easy.